This is the story of Emily Carter, a dedicated teacher and a single mom who pours her entire heart into her students in a school that barely has enough resources. Her story is about a difficult confrontation with a wealthy parent who judges her by her simple clothes, not by her incredible dedication. What that parent doesn't know is that Emily is hiding a powerful secret. Before we continue with the story, we'd love to know where you're watching from. Please let us know in the comments so we can bring more stories that resonate with you. Also, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss our upcoming stories. All right, let's dive into the story. The morning alarm for Emily Carter wasn't just a sound. It was a starting pistol for a race she ran every single day. At 5:30 a.m., when the sky was still a dark, sleepy blue, her race began. First, making a quiet breakfast for her 7-year-old son Leo. Then, packing his lunch and then her own. Her clothes weren't fancy. They were simple, clean, and practical. A pair of comfortable trousers and a sweater that had seen better days, but was warm and soft. By the time she strapped Leo into the passenger seat of her old, rattling car, the sun was just beginning to peek over the horizon. Her destination was Northwood Elementary, a public school that stood as a monument to forgotten budgets. The paint on the outside was peeling, the playground equipment was old, and inside, the hallways echoed with the sounds of children who had far more spirit than the school had funding. But for Emily, this place was her mission. Her classroom was an oasis of color in a sea of beige. She spent her weekends creating bright, hand-drawn posters to cover the cracked walls. She brought in books from second-hand stores and plants from her own small apartment to give the room life. She knew that for these children, school needed to be a safe and inspiring place. Among her students was a boy named Jason. Jason was a bright kid, but he struggled to focus. He often forgot his supplies, and his homework was rarely finished. Emily was patient with him. She gave him extra attention, often staying after class to help him with his reading, never once complaining. The day of the parent-teacher conferences was a long one. Emily had been at the school for over 12 hours. She was tired, her throat was sore from talking, and all she wanted was to go home and hug her son. Just as she was packing up her bag, the classroom door flew open with a loud bang. In walked a woman who looked completely out of place at Northwood Elementary. She wore a sharp, expensive business suit. A designer handbag was slung over her arm, and the click-clack of her high heels on the old floor sounded like an accusation. This was Mrs. Davenport, Jason's mother. "Miss Carter," she began, her voice sharp and cold, "we need to talk about Jason's grade." She didn't wait for an invitation to sit. She stood over Emily's desk, her arms crossed. Emily took a deep breath and put on her professional smile. "Of course, Mrs. Davenport, I was happy to see the improvement in Jason's latest reading test." Mrs. Davenport scoffed, a small, ugly sound. "Improvement? He got a B-." "My son does not get B-. I pay my taxes for this school, and I expect better results." Emily's smile tightened. "Jason is working very hard. He's a smart boy, but he needs a little more support at home with his homework. And sometimes he doesn't have the necessary supplies, like notebooks or pencils." "Supplies?" Mrs. Davenport cut her off, her voice rising. "I give him everything he needs. Maybe the problem isn't the supplies. Maybe it's the teaching. Maybe if this school hired teachers with a little more ambition, my son would be getting the grades he deserves." The insult hung in the air, thick and heavy. Emily felt a flush of anger rise in her cheeks, but she pushed it down. She had to remain professional. "For the kids. For Jason. I can assure you, Mrs. Davenport, that I am doing everything I can to help your son succeed." Mrs. Davenport looked Emily up and down, her eyes filled with scorn. She took in Emily's worn-out sweater and simple shoes. "Frankly," the woman said slowly, her voice dripping with disdain, "looking at your outfit, I'm not sure you can inspire anyone to succeed. You get what you pay for, I suppose." That was it. The final blow. It wasn't just an insult to Emily as a teacher, but as a person. She felt small, humiliated, and utterly exhausted. She opened her mouth to respond, to defend her dignity, but she was interrupted. "Is there a problem here?" A calm, firm voice came from the doorway. Both women turned to see the school's principal, Mr. Harrison. He was a kind, older man who had been an educator for over 40 years. He had seen everything, and he did not tolerate disrespect towards his staff. Mrs. Davenport immediately changed her tone, putting on a sweet, concerned voice. "Oh, Principal Harrison, I was just expressing my concern to Ms. Carter about my son's performance and about the standards of this school." Mr. Harrison walked slowly into the room. He didn't look at Mrs. Davenport. He looked directly at Emily with kind, understanding eyes. He had heard Mrs. Davenport's final cruel words from the hallway. He then turned his calm gaze to Jason's mother. "Your concern is noted, Mrs. Davenport," he said, his voice even. "And I'm glad you brought up the topic of standards. Because Ms. Carter here is one of the most qualified and most inspiring educators I have ever worked with." Mrs. Davenport looked surprised. "Well, I'm sure she tries her best." "No," Mr. Harrison said, his voice becoming stronger. "I don't think you understand. What you may not know is that before coming to Northwood, Ms. Carter was the lead history teacher at the Westfield Academy." Mrs. Davenport's perfectly sculpted eyebrows shot up. The Westfield Academy was the most expensive and exclusive private school in the entire state. The same school she had tried and failed to get Jason into the previous year. Mr. Harrison continued. "She was offered the head of her department, a position that came with a salary 3 times what she makes here. She turned it down. Do you know why?" Mrs. Davenport was silent. Her arrogant expression was replaced by one of confusion. "She turned it down," the principal said, "because she believes that every child deserves a brilliant teacher, not just the children whose parents can afford it. She came here, to our underfunded school, because she wanted to make a real difference." The air in the room was thick with tension. Emily just stood there, her heart pounding in her chest. Then, Mr. Harrison delivered the final devastating truth. "And you mentioned supplies. Mrs. Davenport," he said, his voice now soft but powerful. "The new notebooks Jason loves so much, the colored pencils he uses for his art projects, the snacks he gets when he forgets his lunch." He paused, letting the words sink in. "Ms. Carter buys those. For every child in this class who needs them. She buys them with her own money. From a salary that you just insulted." Mrs. Davenport's face, once twisted with arrogance, was now pale. Her mouth opened, but no words came out. For the first time, she looked around the classroom. She saw the cheerful, handmade posters covering the cracks in the wall. She saw the neatly organized bookshelf filled with used books. She saw the love and care that filled every corner of the room. And she saw the teacher, a single mom in a worn-out sweater, who was giving her son more than she ever could. Without another word, Mrs. Davenport turned and walked out of the classroom. The sound of her expensive heels was much quieter this time, almost silent, as she retreated down the empty hallway. Mr. Harrison turned to Emily, a warm smile on his face. "Thank you for what you do, Emily. Never let anyone make you doubt your worth." For the first time all day, Emily felt a true, warm smile spread across her face. It was a smile of relief, of validation, and of pride. She was a teacher, and she was exactly where she was meant to be. And that was the story of Emily Carter, a hero who doesn't wear a cape, but a simple, warm sweater. Let us know in the comments. Have you ever had a teacher who went above and beyond for you or your children? We would love to read your stories. If this story touched your heart, please consider hitting that subscribe button. It's completely free for you, but it helps our channel a lot and allows us to bring you more stories like this one. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day.